Welcome, everybody, once again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. As always, our sponsor of the month is Flash Wireless. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matt Balzer. So Gloria has been playing probably nonstop in St. Louis and in the Missouri areas since Wednesday night. And were you surprised at all by the game, or did St. Louis just play the most perfect road game? Because the game could have been completely different if Boston scored early in some of their chances. But, man, what a game, what a finish. It kind of sucks that one team has to lose. But for me, I always love watching a new team and all the players celebrate a Stanley Cup.
And being a Canucks fan, I think we got extra satisfaction out of this. I think most of Canada was rooting for the Blues to win the cup. So yeah, I was pretty happy because I think the Blues, I think that they had a couple of good shifts to start the game, getting their forecheck in, but then after that it was just all Boston in the first. And man, Jordan Binnington, we talk about how he's been able to bounce back just about every game in the playoffs, and he showed up big time. I think he had four standout saves just in the first period. I think the big one on Marchand on that power play, because that was I think we brought it up, or you brought it up before. That was sort of the turning point in the first period. Once when Boston got that power play, the way he was able to get across and stretch out and just get enough of that shot, and then the save on Johansson where he missed on the poke check, and then but he was able to stretch out and make the pad save. And then he was just able to keep the Blues in it until O'Reilly got that tip for that first goal. And then Schwartz making that crazy, nice pass to Pietrangelo for that goal. And Mr. Brad Marchand getting caught on that bad line change.
And it sucks for Marchand on that play. I totally have been in his shoes before. The Pastrnak, Bergeron, Marchand line absolutely dominated for almost 2 minutes, and they needed to get off. And then all of a sudden, Marchand was in the back-checking role and couldn't decide whether to get off or not. He missed Schwartz and then decided to go off, but that was his man, I believe, Pietrangelo, then that got the pass and walked in and scored. It's a tough situation because even at that level, sometimes when you're that tired and gassed, you don't really know what to do. But, man, Jordan Binnington, you talked about those saves. I believe the one off Marcus Johansson, that was the breakaway, right, where he missed the poke check?
Yeah.
That was an insane save, but nothing beats his save in the third period that he made, where he just stuck out the pad. I couldn't believe he made that save. He played a great game, and Rask, unfortunately, because it was so lopsided, didn't get as many shots. He got beat by a really nice Ryan O'Reilly tip. And O'Reilly, man, what can you say about him? Broken ribs apparently through the playoffs since the Dallas series. Wins the Conn Smythe Trophy, but scores again for the fourth straight game in a row, the first goal of the game for the St. Louis Blues. That is absolutely incredible. But I think they got effort from their whole team. And when Curtis Sanford scored and they were celebrating, I saw David Perron jump into the pile after he set him up with that pass in the third. And he said, guys, we're going to win the cup, right? There's about 4 or 5 minutes left. But Perron made a great play on that goal coming out of the corner. I don't know how he wasn't checked, but there was 2 or 3 Bruins there. And Sanford just had a tap in. And it just showed, I think Boston was pushing so hard that they just got so tired and exhausted because they couldn't solve Binnington at all.
Yeah, well, that would be Zach Sanford. Curtis Sanford is a –
Sorry.
But, yeah. At least he did play for the Blues, so there's that. So, but yeah,
that's the perfect broadcast.
Yeah, but that Sanford goal, the Perron's move, and even Tarasenko, that pass to set up Shen, the pass through Chara's feet, and a perfect shot by Shen off the post and in, and that came right after that Binnington save on Nordstrom, where just absolute robbery. It's I don't know. I watched.
Nordstrom scores there. It's a different game again, right? They're only down by 1 with 5-6 minutes left, and they have a chance.
Yeah, and that was basically I know it came earlier in the series last year, but that was the Holtby save where he robbed Tuck with the paddle last year, where it's just you felt the momentum start to shift or whatever, and then you start going the other way. But yeah, just the defensive game that St. Louis played is basically like outside of like that first period or whatever. After the last two periods, a lot of the shots were one and done again, and just they were blocking shots. They blocked 21 shots in the game. I thought Colton Parayko once again, like we talk about their top three again, but Colton Parayko once again stood out to me. I believe in the first period, I forget who he checked, but he was just coming down. He just stripped the guy from the puck and he just carried it out and dumped it in. And that was just the way the Blues played. It's just block shots, and you sort of get those flip dump ins where you don't ice the puck, and you just sort of drain the clock out. And Jordan Binnington was there to take away any scoring chances. So just a crazy good game. Ryan O'Reilly, what can you say about him winning the Conn Smythe? But then you get to a lot of the veterans that were able to win the cup. Jay Bouwmeester, I think I wrote over 1,200 combined games in the regular season and playoffs before winning the Stanley Cup. He becomes the 29th member to win of the Triple Gold Club. That's Stanley Cup gold, Olympic gold, and World Championship gold. So just an unbelievable accomplishment for him. And some other veterans, Alex Steen, who's been with the Blues for many years, and also David Perron, who went through heartbreak last year being a healthy scratch with Vegas. And then this year he won the Stanley Cup with St. Louis. So, and talk about David Perron, this was I believe his third or fourth stint with the Blues. So talk about a guy that's bounced around. But yeah, just so many guys. And then I'll let you touch on Chris Thorburn and his story there, because he was about the fourth guy to get the cup.
So Pietrangelo gets the cup from Gary Bettman. And there's a funny story about that, which we shared before on the air. When they landed in St. Louis after traveling on the airplane, and they partied with some fans there was about a few thousand fans at the airport waiting for them. There's I think it was Michael Dalzado on his Instagram had Alex Pietrangelo trying to put the Stanley Cup in his minivan, and they were joking that it was the first time that the Stanley Cup's ever gone in a minivan before. Because for those that don't know, Pietrangelo had triplets last year, so I think they're all 1 year, 1.5 years old, and they couldn't get the cup in the middle part of the minivan, and you could hear the wife yelling at him in the background to put it in the back. And he's like, "There's boxes in the back, right?" And they're having a brief, couples argument about where the Stanley Cup should go in this minivan. It's kind of funny. And then the other picture that really stood out was Tarasenko's newborn baby, who's only, I think, 6 days old. They've already taken a picture with the newborn baby inside the Stanley Cup, which was really cool. But Chris Thorburn, for those of you that don't know his story, good NHL veteran. Started the year, for some reason, St. Louis decided not to let him make the team. They sent him down to their farm team. I think it's San Antonio is their farm team.
Yeah.
But he got called up a couple times throughout the year. And he's pretty tight with a lot of the team. He's considered a really good teammate, and something to do with obviously cap space and all their young guys that they have. But they brought him up in March, full time to the team, just because it did something for his medical, which allowed medical procedures for his son, which I believe was autistic. I'm not 100% on that, but there was some medical that they needed, and the team really looked after him and his family by calling them up full time. And he was the fourth one that held the Stanley Cup. Obviously, he's been around the league for a long time. I don't believe he played a game in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but he was very emotional about it and very thankful to the Blues organization. So.
And the one cool thing that I saw that brought up is that nobody really took a lap with the cup when they celebrated. Yeah. Everybody just sort of it's like after thinking back on it, I was like, yeah, it's like everybody just sort of was like, yeah, we won the cup, and then they kept handing it off. Nobody did like the lap around the rink or anything or whatever. It showed how tight of a team they are. Whereas it's like, hey, it's like I just want to make sure everybody gets the chance with the cup.
And I think that shows how classy they are too, because I almost think they did that because it was in Boston. It wasn't on their home ice. So because they were in Boston, instead of if they were in St. Louis, I bet you they take a lap around the rink with it. Because the fans are there. It's great to see all, of course, at the end of the game, to see all the families and friends come on the ice. And especially, I'll let you touch on, of course, the St. Louis Blues story of the young girl there. They got the whole Stanley Cup with Colton Parayko.
Yeah, because Layla and Parayko, I guess they're like super tight together, and that video is just like watching that. It's like if you don't get emotional watching Layla and Parayko with the Stanley Cup, just amazing. But yeah, it's like those are the stories that you live for, and the one thing that is like I always bring this up when I talk about the Stanley Cup celebration. There's nothing like this. Like you got like the Super Bowl where it's like you win and you got like 100 media guys standing right in front of you. You can't celebrate with your teammates or with your family because it's like you're just walking around and you can't move anywhere. It's like here, it's like the NHL does it right. Like all the players get the cup before the owner or any of the other guys. Watching the Raptors win last night. It's like you see the difference or whatever of how the NHL does it. Compared to any other sport, it's just perfect. And even the other thing I liked was Ryan O'Reilly when he was getting interviewed by Scott Oak, accidentally dropped an F-bomb in his interview, and he did the most Canadian thing ever. He just kept apologizing over and over. He is swearing, but I love the CBC feed because like it's like everybody was dropping like the effing rights or whatever whenever they were lifting the puck, the cup. And they weren't blanking out. Apparently on the NBC feed, they started blanking out all the swearing and everything. But yeah, I just love the raw emotion of everybody celebrating with the cup. But yeah, just crazy. I'm so happy for St. Louis. And also jealous because that they are no longer, as it's put, they are no longer in the sad club of not having won the Stanley Cup before. So the longest Stanley Cup drought now goes to the Toronto Maple Leafs at 52 years, followed by us in Vancouver and in Buffalo.
Buffalo, yeah. You got to tip your hats to the biggest cheers from the team. Obviously, when Jordan Binnington got the trophy, they said a lot of people were commenting that when he got called up and started playing for St. Louis, he had exceptional confidence that started rubbing off on the team and helped change their season around. And of course, the funny thing is that's the day that's literally the day after that the other players were at the pub in Philadelphia where they took Gloria as their new theme song. But of course, also when Craig Berube held up the cup, the players went crazy for him. They all lifted up their arms and were quite happy for the guy. And it sounds like they're finally going to take the interim tag off him.
Yeah. That's why I still couldn't believe it. I'm like, he's still technically the interim head coach for the team. Yeah. But yeah,
happy for Mike Van Ryn, former roller hockey player, assistant coach with St. Louis, and of course Steve Ott, former pain in the ass in the NHL. Who both did. You could see Steve Ott did some great work behind the bench during the entire playoffs, and that coaching staff I think will all get rehired. And I've heard today that the majority of that team looks like they're going to be able to keep them together.
Yeah, because I was looking, they got decent cap space. The one thing that will be interesting is how much money is Binnington didn't get paid because he's an RFA. So I looked up what Matt Murray was playing because he's about like the only other comparable for a rookie winning a cup and sort of going to the number one role. So Murray's cap hit right now is $3.75 million. But the one thing that could be different is because you got Jake Allen's contract and he's making a little over $4 million right now. So that's one thing that could change. But if you're looking for comparables, I look at Matt Murray's contract right now. So, but yeah, it will be interesting because I think most of the guys they got to sign are mostly RFAs and they're mostly younger guys for the most part. Because I think like Maroon and there might be like one other guy and Gunnarsson. But yeah, those are like some of the couple minor UFAs on the team. So they should have enough cap space there. I'm just quickly looking up what they have.
Well, and two things. Pat Maroon, of course, signed for less money in St. Louis this year at the beginning of the season as a free agent to play for his hometown. And he said it was mostly for his kids. He wanted his kids to be around. He wanted his kids to experience where he grew up in St. Louis. And, of course, his son, very emotional movies or like highlights from the Dallas game. you know, the Game 7 overtime winner that Maroon scored. And Maroon and O'Reilly seemed really tight. There's a lot of pictures of them together. On the airplane coming home, they sit next to each other. Maroon had the Stanley Cup, O'Reilly had the Conn Smythe, and they had drinks and cigars in their mouths, partying it away for sure. And those two guys I can think of they both came to the team at the beginning of the season, so it's only natural that they bond together. But and then of course Jordan Bennington, who started the year as the fourth string for St. Louis, and he was loaned at one time to Providence, the AHL, who of course is the Boston Bruins farm team. So a lot of the younger guys on the Bruins knew who he was, and it's quite the story for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just crazy. And the thing is that when I think he got to Providence, they kept playing him because he was playing so well or whatever. Because usually like when you get lent to another AHL team by another organization, it's just like, yeah, we might play you a little bit. But the thing is, he played so well that he started playing him over their other goalie prospects in Boston. So, but yeah, just an amazing year for St. Louis. Just amazing way to sum up these NHL playoffs just in general with all the upsets, the parity. It's just crazy where it's just like you can go from being in last place in January to being the Stanley Cup champions in June. Just unbelievable.
And I think it's summed up to me, to win in today's NHL, you need speed and talent, of course, but you still need some size. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I used to say when Nashville went to the finals a couple of years ago is you need at least three big defensemen that can log a lot of ice time. And St. Louis definitely had that. Boston, of course, had Krug and McAvoy. Maybe Chara fits into that because of the role that he plays. And you look at Washington last year, I think Niskanen and Carlson had just an absolute ton of ice time. And you have the role players like Orpik that take a lot of shots, block a lot of shots. And, I think some of St. Louis's big guys like Parayko did that this year. So for any teams that are building, if you're a Canucks fan or other teams fans, I mean, I look at the Canucks defense and you got maybe one guy right now. Yeah. And most teams that get there you need at least three or four. Winnipeg, another example, right? They had Bufflin, they have, Trouba, you got Morrissey back there. You got three really solid defensemen without Myers. You got four with Myers. You look at Vegas, they had, Nate Schmidt played absolutely a ton of hockey, but you had the role player like Engelland who could play a lot of time and block a lot of shots. But they lost because I think they didn't have the big defensemen that some of the other teams have. But interesting. I don't know if that's going to continue because, of course, whoever wins the Cup in 3, 4, 5 years from now, the NHL may change by then. But I still think you need some size. And I worry for players like Pettersson or Quinn Hughes when they do make the playoffs, how easy of a target they're going to be.
If I look at Hughes, like I look at Torrey Krug this year with Boston, like he's not the biggest guy, but he is probably one of their best defensemen, I'd say, from start to finish in the playoffs. And I think he ended up with about like 18 points or whatever. But you saw like he didn't take any crap or whatever. And I've seen from Quinn Hughes that it's just like, hey, if you go at him, he'll push back or whatever. He doesn't take any crap or whatever. Pettersson, we'll see. But
Pettersson's going to bulk out a bit more still, but and. Whether it's a Virtanen-type player, you still need the big bodies because you look at St. Louis, they had 4 solid lines, lots of physicality in those lines. Even Tarasenko. I mean, Tarasenko went night after night heads up against the Zdeno Chara. And he threw his weight around a few times, but I was surprised also, though, that Tarasenko was 238 like Ovechkin. Those guys in their legs are just absolute tree trunks, right? But to be able to do that, and you got gritty guys like, the Shens, the Blay, the Barbashev, the Sundqvist, just guys that were giving it all on everything that they had, night in, night out, shift after shift.
Yeah, and the best thing with St. Louis is that throughout these playoffs, they had different guys step up at key times. There wasn't like one guy consistently, like each series, like series after series after series that kept dominating. There was just different guys at different times stepping up, like Schwartz, had the couple Hatties there, and then Maroon, of course, he brought up scoring the OT winner against Dallas to send them on. Tarasenko in the third round of the playoffs, especially really stepped up after people started questioning him. But yeah, it just wasn't just one guy consistently going. It was just every guy at key times stepped up. Like even like Carl Gunnarsson, he went from
Yeah.
being the seventh defenseman or whatever to game back into the lineup and scoring the OT winner in game 2.
But even look at Boston. I mean, they're there because they had a team effort. They had 21 players score a goal in this year's playoffs. I mean, that to me shows that it's more than just a few guys, pulling on the rope. It's the whole team pulling in the rope, pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, the only guy I feel bad for Boston is Tuukka Rask, because the guy like hate Boston or love him, Tuukka Rask had an unbelievable playoffs this year. And if anybody says like he can't get it done or whatever after like the 2013 where they lost to Chicago or whatever, it's this year was not his fault in losing the Stanley Cup. The guy played incredible throughout the playoffs, but everybody else on Boston, I'm pretty happy. That Marchand crying, oh man.
I do feel bad for Boston though, because no matter what they do next year, they still have to somehow go through Toronto and Tampa.
Yeah.
No matter what, it doesn't that's how crazy. I love the playoff format right now because the division rivalries. Like somebody told me that they don't like the playoff formats because you could have the second best team playing the third best team right off the bat. I'm okay with that because I look back in like the mid to late 80s. I mean, Edmonton and Calgary had to go through each other in order to have success in their divisional playoffs. And occasionally one of them would lose to a Winnipeg or a Vancouver or an LA. And you look at Calgary won the Cup in '89, but they had to go to double overtime against the Canucks in Game 7 in round 1, right? So to me, I love that. I love the parity. I think the NHL is doing it right. You look at other sports like the NBA, there's only 3 or 4 teams that are realistically even going to come close to winning. With the NHL, it's like you make the playoffs. You're one of those 16 teams. You have a chance to win the world's hardest trophy to win.
For sure. It's just I think we've gone over like our love for the Stanley Cup. And all that. But yeah, it's just perfect. There's no better sport to watch every year, and just parity wise, no other sport even comes close.
Okay.
But yeah.
So let's wrap up the playoffs. The season's over. We've got the NHL awards coming up. We have I think it's tomorrow already. The buyout period begins, and then we've got the NHL draft coming up very soon as well. But we also had a trade today, as well as some signings. So let's get everybody up to date in the news and notes from around the NHL.
Yeah, so the Washington Capitals have started, and the Philadelphia Flyers, who, of course, they said they were going to be aggressive this offseason, and man, Chuck Fletcher, he continues to go. So the Philadelphia Flyers got Matt Niskanen from the Washington Capitals for Radko Gudas. The Philadelphia Flyers will retain 30% of Gudas's cap hit, which is just a little over $1 million that they're retaining. Niskanen has 2 years left at $5.75 million. And Gudas has 1 year left on his contract at a little over $2 million. So the Washington Capitals, they were looking to get cap space for this offseason. So now with that trade, they have a little over $13.5 million in cap space. And they still have to re-sign Burakovsky, Verana, Juice, Yaskin, and Stevenson as RFAs. And they have Brett Connolly and Carl Hagelin, especially Hagelin. It looks like they're trying to re-sign as unrestricted free agents. And, of course, they have Backstrom.
I was going to say a mad Alex Ovechkin, too, now that somebody took the Stanley Cup away from him finally.
I know, yeah. That was like the one thing. I was happy when Pietrangelo raised the cup, but like, man, Ovechkin, like out of all the seasons I've seen of players, nothing comes close to Ovechkin lifting that.
We'll see. I mean, St. Louis's parade's tomorrow. They've already had a lot of. They've already been celebrating a lot with the fans in the cup, so it'll be cool to see. But of course, lots of Canadians on that team, and as you know. You already brought it up, Ryan O'Reilly, and a lot of the Canadians are very polite.
Niskanen for Gudis. And then the big signing today, Jordan Eberle with the New York Islanders, got a 5-year extension with a cap hit of $5.5 million.
Great signing for the Islanders, and great for Eberle to have locked himself up that long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really good. So he's 29. So his cap hit prior to this was $6 million. So it's actually a little bit of a less money than he was making. But last year was his worst year in the NHL. Only 19 goals and 37 points in 78 games. But he had an incredible playoffs, 4 goals, 9 points in 8 games, which probably earned him a little bit more money there from what he would have lost. So hopefully, at least in the regular season, he'll bounce back. He's always around that 20 to 25 goals, and getting back up to like that 60 point mark. So good move for the Islanders, who still have to re-sign Robin Leonard and Anders Lee, who are both upcoming unrestricted free agents there. Let's see here. Just an update on Zdeno Chara. So he did break his jaw on that deflection off Schen's shot, and he had to get 2 plates, screws, and wires to repair multiple fractures to his jaw, and he ended up playing the last 3 games, which is just unbelievable. Like you brought up the O'Reilly playing with the cracked rib since the Dallas series. It's just the way NHL players are able to battle through these injuries is just insane. And then we're going to some rumors or trade rumors and stuff with the Canucks and some other teams.
Actually, before we talk about that, there's also one injury from Boston. Maybe let's touch on Kevin Miller.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Kevin Miller, he would have been part of Boston's blue line during these playoffs if it wasn't for multiple injuries that he's dealing with.
Season.
Yeah. So in October, he broke his hand. Came back in November, fractured his larynx, and then in February, he torn oblique. And then in April, he broke his kneecap vertically. And then when he was recovering, trying to get back, he broke the same kneecap except horizontally in May. So that's why he wasn't able to play in these playoffs, because a lot of guys, especially with some of the injuries on the back end that they had throughout the playoffs, they were hoping to maybe get him back. But those are some crazy injuries. They battle through. Like,
I'm sure we'll still get some more injury updates as the playoffs roll out here too over the next few days.
Yeah, because like I saw, I think Patrice Bergeron played with a bad groin, and Marchand had a couple of things. Apparently, in that scrimmage that they had when they were trying to leading up to the Stanley Cup final, he sprained his hand. I think he collided with Johansson, I believe. So talk about a freak injury there, and he had a couple other things. But yeah, it's just crazy. I want to see if Pastrnak was injured at all. Because that's another guy, I think, as the playoffs went on, he sort of declined, especially in the finals.
Oh, in the last game, he fanned on a couple of shots that I thought for sure were going to be labeled.
Mm-hmm. So getting back, some trade rumors. So Shane Gostisbehere's name's been brought up with the Philadelphia Flyers. Talk about a young defensive, 26 years old. Had a bit of a down year, only had 37 points this year, but the year prior he had 65. From the back end. So offensive dynamo, I know his defensive play hasn't been not the big talking point, but if you're looking for a good young defenseman, the Canucks have been rumored in that. Same with Nikita Zaitsev, bringing him back up. The Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers are apparently interested in him. Oilers, go for it, man. With your the way it's going.
And the Oilers surprisingly kept Keith Acton as the assistant general manager there.
Yeah, I saw that. Also, talking about coaching and GM stuff, the Buffalo Sabres rounded out their coaching staff. They hired Don Granato and Mike Bales as assistant coaches. The Dallas Stars hired John Stevens as an assistant coach. He was prior with the Los Angeles Kings as their assistant head coach, the Darryl Sutter, before he took over and got fired eventually there. Rick Nash is joining the Columbus Blue Jackets as a special assistant to the general manager. So he returns to the team that drafted him. And they also promoted Bill Zito to senior vice president of hockey operations to go along with him being the associate general manager and associate governor of the team, as he's one of those top candidates that's always been rumored about potentially becoming a general manager, either with Seattle or any other team that comes up. Yeah, and then just to go along with the Blues, they finished up the road record as 10-3, which ties an NHL record for most road wins in the Stanley Cup final. The Washington Capitals actually did it last year, who also went 10-3. And yeah, I think as you brought up, the key NHL dates coming up, I'll end off with this. So yeah, tomorrow is the buyout period. We had guys like Corey Perry, Dion Phaneus names that have been brought up. And then on the 19th is the NHL Awards. And then the next day, June 20th, will be the GM meeting in Vancouver. So I'm guessing maybe some rule changes and stuff could be brought up there. And then, of course, all the trade rumors and stuff will start to get geared up as the 21st and the 22nd is the NHL draft. And then the June 23rd, the UFA interview period begins. So all the rumors and all those big names that we've been waiting for with Panarin, Duchesne, Bobrovsky, all those guys will start to get up. And then June 25th, the full NHL schedule for next year will be released. And then, of course, we end the summer period on July 1st with free agency starting, which is basically what will be my candidate day.
Yeah. Then we have to go through all the dog days of summer and wait till training camp starts and see who gets injured throughout their workouts and stuff like that. But and then finally, J.P. Barry, the agent for Louis Eriksson, has said that it looks like Louis Eriksson will not be back with the Vancouver Canucks. So it'll be interesting to see if anything happens there. But remember to comment below, whether you're watching this on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel, B&B Hockey Talk. Again, today's episode is brought to you by our monthly sponsor, Flash Wireless, for all your wireless needs in the USA. You can get any phone, any plan that you want. Just simply go to our Facebook page. We have a link there for you where you could help support our channel by getting your service through Flash Wireless. And of course, that service is on two of the biggest networks in the US. And there's a way you can get your cell phone service for free. Just simply click on the link and learn below. That's on our Facebook page. Anything else to add, Matt?
Not a whole lot. What I will probably be doing as the draft and the off season comes along, I'll probably be doing some articles just on teams, a recap on some teams' seasons and what potential moves they can make this off season. When I have the time, I'll try to sneak some articles in there. Just so you guys can get a heads up, and especially with the draft coming up, because I've been reading up on some guys. Because especially once when the draft comes around, like Hughes and Kakko will go 1 and 2, but there's some other guys.
Yeah, there's about 12, 13 guys after that, and who knows where they're going to go. I've heard Turcotte, Kirby Dack, Bowen Byram. Man, there's so many decent players that this is going to be a deep draft, I think, this year.
Yeah, from what I've read up, there's going to be a lot of guys, and one guy I'm hoping will fall to the Canucks will be Cole Caulfield. Smaller guy, but man, the guy can put the puck in the net. So one can dream, but yeah, it really is going to be a bit of a crapshoot after the top 2 picks on who, because like everybody's saying that Chicago's going to take a center, but if they take the defenseman, that could change what LA does at number 4, because they're looking for the top defenseman. In Bowen Byram, I'm guessing. So, but yeah, it'll be really interesting.
I've seen mock drafts where Bowen Byram falls all the way to Detroit too at number 5. So,
and when we saw that last year with Zadina dropping all the way to number 6.
Yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see. And last date to pass along to you is the St. Louis Blues Stanley Cup parade is tomorrow, Saturday morning in St. Louis. Where they had over 18,000 in the arena and over 45,000 in the Ball Stadium watching Game 7. They're expecting well over a crowd of 130,000 people out tomorrow to help celebrate the St. Louis first ever Stanley Cup championship. So congrats to the St. Louis Blues. And we'll be back, of course, next week with another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. Everyone have a great weekend, and thanks again for being such great fans and watching our show.